So good evening, everyone. I'm Sandy Feist, and tonight I'm going to be sharing information on your vibe attracts your tribe. So the first question I have to ask, would you all agree with me that we're not just a physical being, but that we are a frequency being? We have a vibe about us, and there are different things that affect our frequencies. So really, do we want to vibe at low vibrations in the mud and attract more trauma and not get through the trauma that easily? Or vibe at higher levels and sure, there's still trauma in life and there's still distractions, but we have tools to get us through it easier. Obviously, that's the better choice. So every journey begins with the first step of articulating your intention and then becoming the intention. So what we want to do is create a web of what we want to be, do, have, and become. And it all begins with one strand of your being and trusting yourself to radiate outwards and to create your dreams. And it all begins with you. No one else can do this. Only you can do it for yourself. And it's about creating from soul and beginning to radiate outwards using strands of beauty, love, joy, and gratitude. And I don't know how many of you know Dr. Emoto's work. So if we look at the picture, bottom right, of this beautiful crystal, that's a crystal of the energy of love and gratitude. So in essence, what he did was he took water in a bottle, he wrote down different words, and in this case, love and gratitude, wrapped it around the bottle as if the water was reading the words. Then in essence, took it to near freezing point and photographed the crystal. And this is the crystal that formed from love and gratitude. His books are well worth looking at, and it'll make you realize that we need to be aware of what we think, say, and do every moment of the day. So every breath is a creation of your being. Every word, every action, every moment. So some people may think, yeah, Sandy, that sounds like a bunch of woo-woo. Bear with me, and I'm going to ask you to look at the science of this. So our bodies are our physical bodies are less than 1% of who we really are. The rest is all space, frequencies, and vibration. So let's consider atoms. We're made up of atoms, as is everything else. Now imagine an atom as a basketball. And imagine we've got one basketball here, one atom, and another atom there. They've proven that the space between atoms, imagine they're the size of basketballs, are 16 to 48 kilometers or 10 to 30 miles. That's the space that's between atoms in essence. Another analogy, let's look at atoms as a grain of sand. Between each grain of sand, it's like vast deserts. That's the amount of space. And that's why our body, physical body, is less than 1% of who we are. So what are different frequency categories? There are brainwave frequencies, cellular frequencies, organs. Even Einstein speaks of every organ has a frequency and a vibration. Look at solfeggio frequencies. If you don't know them, please look them up. I'm certainly running them on me tomorrow. I haven't done it for a while, and I feel I need it. They're technology frequencies, brainwave entrainment. They're different frequencies. They're sound frequencies, color frequencies, light frequencies, and David talks about photobiomodulation. They're light frequencies. And then pulsed electronic magnetic frequencies. They're right frequencies, and I've put the plus signs there, because in this category are skios, Hunter machines, quantum machines, all sorts of machines. And they are all different frequencies. And I've left a gap under Rife. And what do you think should fit in there? Our patches should fit in there, because our patches emit frequencies. Every patch basically emits a different frequency. And Einstein also said the frequency, the healing of the future medicine is frequency medicine. So now let's see what affects these frequencies. So our thoughts affect our frequencies, and thoughts are either external events that affect our thoughts, or thoughts we choose to plant in our heads, and the thoughts we choose to entertain. It's the words we use, it's prayers, meditation, it's our actions. I've purposely put in forgiveness because I think, in fact, I believe forgiveness is a massive, it has a massive effect on our energy. It's the books we read. It's our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial health as well. It's activities we take part in, movies we watch, our experiences, and the people we mix with. It's basically everything in our life. Food affects our frequencies. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the scorpions in the head? So I've been running a wellness practice for 24 years, and more than 20 years ago, I had a retired teacher from Soweto come to me for treatments, and she kept on talking about these scorpions in the head. And in the end, I said to her, please enlighten me, help me to understand what you're trying to tell me about these scorpions in the head. And she said, Sandy, have you ever felt or almost heard yourself talking about you're not good enough, you're the wrong color, you're not educated enough, you're born in the wrong area or time frame or whatever? And if any of you experience these scorpions in the head, I certainly have. And interesting, I've experienced them recently as well. But the good thing is, when we become aware of them, there is something we can do about it. And the best is, as the thoughts coming in, is to stop the thought before we start to entertain it. So I'm going to show you something from this book, Power versus Force. And we're going, by David R. Hawkins. And we're going to look at 2 pages. I'm going to ask you to concentrate on the page on the right at first. Now look at level and log. Log is basically frequency. So look at how low shame is. It runs at 20, guilt at 30. Apathy is surprising, isn't it? At 50. Grief at 75. Fear at 100. And fear is a higher level than apathy. And then there's anger. And often, and I know what happens to me if I get angry, which sadly I do, I get ratty and that. And then I tend to feel guilty. And that can run into shame. So I'm dropping my frequency and vibration right down. In the meantime, I need to get out of it very quickly. Then let's look at the top word on that page, courage. And you can feel it's a better vibration. And that sits at 200. Now the arrow's starting to change upwards. So let's move to the screen, the picture on the left. And go to the second word from the bottom, willingness. Now, doesn't willingness, at any rate, feel much lighter? And then there's Look at reason, love. Love sits at 500. Joy is even higher at 540, and peace at 600. And I'm sure you'll agree with me. When one's feeling peaceful, it is impossible to be angry or suffer with fear, grief, anger, guilt, shame. So now let's consider perception and reality. So does reality create perception, or does perception create reality? I believe perception creates reality. I've seen that in my own life. I've seen it in the world. So as an example, let's say there's a huge economic downturn. Isn't it interesting that there are many businesses and people who still do remarkably well? They're not dragged in by that reality. They have their own perception and they are creating their own reality. So let's look at what Einstein and Tesla say. Einstein says, everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. And then Tesla says, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. How true, how true. So now let's just think about the two shoe salesmen. And I'm sure many of you here know the story, but I'm still going to go through it. So there were two shoe salesmen who were sent out to rural areas where culture had never worn shoes. And the first salesman thought, these people don't wear shoes. This is a waste of time. There's no market here. And he packed up his goods and he went back and he reported, there's no potential for sales. The second salesman arrived and he thought, wow, nobody wears shoes here. This is an untapped market. I can sell shoes to the entire region. And he stayed, worked hard, and eventually successfully introduced shoes to the whole community. So isn't it interesting? This story highlights the importance of perspective and attitude. And a negative view always sees obstacles and gives up. But a positive view sees opportunity and takes action. And it's all about mindset. Mindset, we can change what's happening in our personal lives, business lives, everything. And we grow through it. So here I'm going to be talking about bouncing back from adversity. And here I'm 100% sure everyone on this call has bounced back from adversity in different categories many, many, many times over. So I'm going to be talking about a few people. One of them is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I absolutely love his work. And I'm going to be referring to him again and again. So Joe Dispenza, when he was 23 in 1986, he was a chiropractor and a triathlete. And he was cycling and an SUV hit him from the back. And he broke 6 vertebrae really, really, really badly. And he woke up in hospital having no recollection of the accident and no feeling in the feet. And the neurologist or neurosurgeon spoke to him and said, what they should do is do a Harrington rod surgery. It's 2 stainless steel rods, about 12 inches long. And I think they even trim off some of the bone, but that means the spine won't be able to move. And with the hope that he'd be able to walk again. And he actually spoke to 4 neurosurgeons and they all recommended it. But what he decided to do was use his mind to change his health. And being a chiropractor, he could absolutely visualize every single vertebra in detail from every angle. And he says the first 6 weeks, he struggled to do this exercise for 30 minutes. He really, really struggled. And then he found he could do it, visualizing a perfectly healthy spine, each vertebra in perfect health. And after 10.5 weeks, he stood up. And 12 weeks later, he left hospital and he started training. Remarkable. Today, he runs a massive business. And he works a lot with the neuro side. And he has equipment, and we see people spontaneously healing, including top medical professions, from things like stage 4 liver cancer, bang, healed. And he can see all of it on scientific equipment. So Joe Dispenza is very interesting to follow. He's got wonderful books. Then there's Skip Archimedes, and I met him a few months ago. I was so impressed with him. He is so full of energy, and I'm not sure if Ragini is on the score, but she was at the same talk that I'm, same talk of his, and I know feels the same way. And Skip was he broke his back. He was a gymnast. He broke his back, and he was told he would never walk again. And instead, his mother said to him, consider what Bruce Lee does, which he did. And in 6 months, he was walking. And in 18 months, he became the English acrobatic champion. And let me tell you, when you see him and you see him move and all his energy, I just know. And I've seen videos of him as an acrobatic champion. So I'm hoping that that's opening your minds, because it made a massive difference to me. And then I'm going to be talking about 3 people who many of you know, with permission, Jessie, Chris, and then Eric and myself. So many of you know Jessie. We call her Duracell Bunny, or double Duracell Bunny. She is so optimistic. She's so positive, and she gets out there and she does what she needs to do in all aspects of her life. But when she joined LifeWave, they had just had huge financial adversity. And I was amazed at what I saw with Jessie. Jessie just couldn't get herself moving. And she kept using excuses of she's got to work in the butchery on the farm and all the grandchildren. And that's what we all do when we go through adversity, when we're not feeling great. We actually use excuses to feed how we feel. And after 8 months, I said to Jessie, stop purring around. Now, I can say that to Jessie. For the English-speaking people, it's basically stop messing around. Let's get with it. And Jessie changed. She still works in the butchery on the farm, long hours, packing tons of meat. She's got even more grandchildren, so more responsibility. But her mindset changed. It was the same Jessie before as to after. It was purely a mindset change. And that changed her frequency, her vibration, and her energy level. Now, you all know Chris, and I think you know his story. So we were around Chris when he lost everything. So we all have books and clothes, but Chris, all he had was a desk and a laptop. Many, many, many people who say they don't have money are wealthy compared to what Chris had at the time. And then George told Chris about LifeWave. Chris saw it as a priority in his life. And what he did was, he got toys on consignment. He went to a market. He knelt down talking to children selling toys, making a small profit per toy. Come the end of the weekend, he joined LifeWave with the package. And would you all agree with me? Chris has made huge strides in every aspect of his life. He's done so well in LifeWave, and he's on the upward streak. And look at how much he's done for us. with the Zooms, the toolboxes, just everything that he set up. And I give thanks to Chris and I give thanks to Jessie. I really do. And then what happened to us, as you all know, Eric and I are no longer chickens. I'm 72, Eric's 81 next month. And just a few years ago, we had our whole pension stolen. Eric wasn't working at the time, still isn't. I'm the breadwinner, and I was the breadwinner. I was running a practice that the treatments were 2 to 2.5 hours long, so we were just getting by. And then we landed up with COVID, landed up in hospital, thank God not in ICU. And Eric was comatose for 10 days. When I came out, I could not run my practice. I was too weak. And I sold my car. So now we had no pension and we were just getting by and we were sharing a car. And what I did was, when our pension got stolen, when this happened, I nearly fell apart. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I was petrified. I was sobbing, screaming, swearing, shouting, doing everything. But thank goodness, something in my mind said to me, you cannot continue like this. If you do, you will attract worse. So you have 3 days to get over the stolen pension. I got through the COVID much easier, but get through the stolen pension. You got 3 days. You can sob, scream, shout, swear, carry on. On the 4th day, you will change. I told myself that because I knew I had no option. And on the 4th day, it took me 2 hours. I can remember it clearly. I can remember where I was sitting on the patio, and I spoke to myself for 2 hours before I could start feeling some calmness in the brain and some in the heart. And then each day I improved on that. And I started working with living in the question, which I'll be going into, with affirmations, visualizations, and life started to change. And I honestly believe it's because of all of that that I attracted LifeWave into our lives. And I give thanks to David, LifeWave, our whole team, all our uplines. It is the best thing that happened in our lives. So, what actions can we take? So we've got to guard our thoughts. These external thoughts, I could have continued to entertain the negative, miserable, downgraded thoughts, or to start planting new thoughts and to working towards a higher frequency. So let's guard our thoughts, but it means literally being in full awareness every day and in full mindfulness and deal with it with persistency and consistency. These are just some of the books that I delve into regularly. When I moved, because we had to move, I got rid of 300 books that were not novels. But all of these books helped me. And then to set our targets, not goals. Goals is like an end thing and you reach it and that's it. A target is we set a target for a time, we reach it, set the next target. So to me, it's about setting targets, 30, 60, 90-day targets in all areas of our life, in health, emotions, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, in LifeWave, which ranks we would like to reach. And then applying these techniques and more. And honestly, whatever you can imagine already exists. You just have to quantum jump and match the frequency of that reality. I love the way it says you just have to. Like it's dead simple. It's not dead simple. It takes work, but it's worth it. And I've dedicated a page to gratitude because I honestly believe gratitude carries so much power and brings such a high frequency. And interesting, I did not see gratitude as a word on that chart. And this is my gratitude jar, which you can see here. So what I started many years ago, I wake up in the morning in gratitude for a good night's sleep and for whatever else. Maybe a wonderful dream I've had, healthy body that I can get up and get moving. And I often find I walk through the house just saying, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. Thank you, Lifewave. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, team. I often find I do that because that's how I feel. I close my day with gratitude as well, and for special things that happen during the day, and people who I came across, maybe new people I've met, and even events, distractions that could have happened that weren't pleasant, but that have helped me to grow. And then in here are little notes. Every Monday morning, I write a thank you note of something very special that happened during the week. And on the night of the 31st of December, I give thanks for the year, burn it, and start with an empty jar. So honestly, wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life. You will feel different. So the other book that I love is this Joy of Business. Now, firstly, I'd like all of you to close your eyes, please. We're going to do 2 brief exercises. The first one, we're going to use an affirmation. And I want you to feel whether you feel heavy or light. So in your mind, say, I earn R1 million a month. If that's not enough, just use a figure. And just feel, do you feel heavier or lighter? And now, let's use a question. Throw out a question that says, what will it take for me to earn R1 million a month, or whatever appeals to you? Which one is lighter? So I find living in the questions lighter, as much as I use affirmations. And living in the question is really throwing out the question to our Creator. And God knows best how to deliver, rather than us trying to control. So what Simone Molasses says about Joy of Business, and this is about living in the question, she says, what are you willing to receive? Now, what are we willing to receive? It's not just about, heck, I'm only happy with the good things in life, and I don't want any drama and trauma. But it's really when we're open to receiving everything, knowing we can handle it and grow through it, things start to change. The other thing that she points out is, you are not your business. You are a facilitator. Your business is a separate entity with separate frequency and energy. And here are some questions. Some she poses, some I do, and I use them, and I'll tell you about what happened today. So you can ask of your business, what can I contribute to you today? You can ask the same question. I could say, what can I contribute to Bridget's business today? What would you like to create next? What would you like to do? Who would you like to talk to today? And I spoke to a wonderful new lady via Jan today, and it was such a positive outcome. And who would you like to have involved with you? Now let me tell you what happened. These are questions I asked this morning. So at Jackson's a few weeks ago, I bumped into a client of mine. I treated her child more than 20 years ago. So today after Pilates, we went to Jackson's. Lo and behold, there was Sharon. Sharon may well be on the score. And we started talking about things and about the patches. And guess what? She was open for me to send her some information. and she is joining the business tomorrow at 11:30. Who would you like to have involved with you? And that's what happened. Also, what I often ask, who is the next active business builder to join you? And what can I do to improve the business? So imagine what you could do if you knew you couldn't fail. So this book I delve into often. Now I come to Joe Dispenza's first book that I read, and I love this book. And I'm actually going to be touching on the odd excerpt from 2 pages. So firstly, he talks about affirmations. And I believe we all understand affirmations, and hopefully everyone here uses affirmations because it changes our frequency and our vibration. And we attract in better when we're functioning better and we're vibrating at a higher level. And I honestly believe the patches do that for us as well. So the next thing is he talks about visualization with feeling. And I'm going to read little bits and pieces of Joe's daughter's story. And he just says it so well. So firstly, he says, in short, when you change your mind, you change your life. And he talks about his children being raised to visualize as he teaches it. So being in contact with a greater intelligence can be in making change an integral part of your life. My children, now young adults, have used a similar meditation. They've manifested some remarkable adventures. And there was an agreement. He says, our rule is that I don't interfere or assist in producing the outcome. They create it with their minds, with the quantum field. He says, my 20-something-year-old daughter studies art in college at the time of writing the book. Instead of the typical college student home for summer job, she wanted to work in Italy, learn and experience new things, visit at least 6 Italian cities, and spend 1 week in Florence, since she had friends there. She wanted to work for the first 6 weeks of summer, making a decent wage, then spend the rest of her break at home. That's quite a holiday. So he said to her, sit down and do what you always do, but always feel what it would be like to experience these things. I asked her to create the vision in her mind until it was so clear and real that the thought she was thinking became the experience, and her brain synapses began to write the information as if it was a reality. He then reminded her, you can't get up from your mental creation of this experience as the same person you were when you sat down. You have to get up from your seat as if you have just experienced the most amazing summer of your life. I got it, she said. And she had to change to a new state of being with the elevated mood and then go on in gratitude, generating having had that experience. He says, my daughter called a few weeks later. Dad, the university is offering an art history summer course in Italy. I can get the cost of the program, all expenses down, from $7,000 to $4,000. Can you help me pay for it? He said, it's not that he's not a supportive parent, but she was trying to control the outcome, and that was not the agreement. So he suggested she inhabit the Italian trip and to think, feel, speak, and dream in Italian until she got lost in the experience. A few weeks later, she was at the library chatting with the art history teacher, and they eventually slipped into Italian when the teacher said, I just remembered, a colleague of mine is looking for someone to teach Italian 1 to a group of American students. Of course, my daughter got hired. Get this, not only would she be paid to teach, all expenses paid, but would be in 6 different cities in Italy for 6 weeks, spend a week in Florence, and be able to be home for the second half of the summer. She manifested her dream job in every aspect of her original vision. As she electromagnetically connected to an intended destiny that existed in the quantum, her body was then drawn to the future event, and the experience found her. And that's how he describes visualizing with feeling. I've started practicing that. I encourage everyone to do it. And between that and using these questions, this is how Sharon came into my life this morning again. So now I'm going to show you a wonderful video clip by Dr. Joe Dispenza of neurons that fire together, wire together, so that you can see it in real life and you can really understand what's happening.
Good afternoon. Now, we have 3 brains that allow us to go from thinking to doing to being. Each brain is its own individual biocomputer with its own anatomy and own circuitry, its own physiology and chemistry. They even have their own history as well as their own sense of time and space. Now, the first brain, the neocortex, it's the newest brain in evolution. It's that walnut-shaped structure that sits on the outside with all of its folds and valleys in yellow there. It's the newest, the most evolved and highly specialized in human beings. Right under the neocortex is called the limbic brain, the chemical brain, the emotional brain, or the mammalian brain. It's about the size of a lemon, and it's responsible for regulating internal chemical order. Right in the back of the brainstem there in red is called the cerebellum, the reptilian brain. It's the oldest brain in evolution. It's the seat of the subconscious mind. Now, your brain is made up of about 100 billion neurons. If you took 100 billion sheets of paper and stacked them on top of each other, it would be 5,000 miles high. That's the distance from Los Angeles to London. Now, nerve cells possess the unique ability to store and communicate information between each other. So your neocortex, your thinking brain, is the seat of your conscious awareness. You're listening to me right now with your neocortex. And what the neocortex loves to do is to gather information. And every time you learn something new, you make a new synaptic connection in your thinking brain. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new connections. And every time you learn something new, your brain physically changes. So you read a book on how to ride a bicycle, you read a book on how to build a doghouse, you read a book on how to dance the salsa, how to cook French cuisine, how to become successful, how to be a better parent. And your brain literally upscales its hardware to reflect a new level of mind. The principle in neuroscience says this: nerve cells that fire together wire together. And as you begin to learn new information, you biologically wire that information into your cerebral architecture. So if learning is making new synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining those connections. And just like any relationship, the more you communicate, the more bonded you become. And neurons are exactly the same way. Now, once these neurons begin to fire and wire together, they actually form networks, what neuroscientists call neural networks. Now, neural networks are just gangs of neurons that have fired and wired together to form a community of neurosynaptic connections. It could be related to an idea, a concept, a memory, experience, a skill or behavior and action. But these networks actually have an electrochemical component. And if you want to see mind in action, watch this. That's a thought right there. Again. So you generate more electrical impulses in your brain in one day than all the cell phones on the planet put together. Now, the neuroscientific definition of mind is the brain in action. Mind is the brain at work. Mind is what the brain does. And because we have 100 billion neurons seamlessly pieced together, we can make the brain fire in different sequences, different patterns, and different combinations. And whenever we make the brain work differently, we're changing our mind. Now, there's a very, very unique shuffle that kind of goes on microscopically between different circuits in your brain. You're trying to fire this new thought called compassion. But remember, you fired and wired all these other circuits based on the last 10 years. So as you're beginning to fire this new thought, all these other thoughts are saying, you hate your mother-in-law, you don't want to go to that dinner, why don't you start tomorrow? This isn't a good time to do this. But if you persist with a certain amount of amplitude, and you put your attention behind that thought, sooner or later, that thought will be the strongest and loudest voice in your head. Now, the moment that becomes the loudest voice in your head, the brain has to seal that circuit more permanently. So when the action potential is firing down the neuron from the presynaptic cleft to the postsynaptic cleft, there's a glue that seals the circuit called neural growth factor, and it travels in the opposite direction. But there's only a certain amount of that neural growth factor to go around. So it starts to steal the glue from the neighboring circuits. And when that happens, there goes your memory of your mother-in-law hurting your feelings 10 years ago. There goes the thought that you hate her. There goes the impatience. There goes the intolerance. And the only signal now that's traveling to that neuron is called compassion. Now, every place where one neuron connects with another neuron is a memory. When this happens, you begin to biologically and neurologically prune away the old memory of the old self. And this is the science of changing your mind. If you want to see what it looks like in real time, let's try that again. You want to see what it looks like in real time, unhooking from the old self, reconnecting to the new self. This can happen in moments.
Whoops.
Our research shows that your thoughts can make you sick. And the question is if...
No. Sammy, I don't know how that happened. Anyway, I was due to finish on one last screen that says, really, let's generate our future by moving into action right now. The action today, working towards our targets, generates our future. Let me stop sharing. And I hope that today has shown you, given you some techniques to use. I honestly believe in these techniques. I use them. May I get better and better at these? I encourage you to try what makes sense for you, to investigate, to look at the science, and to use this, and to go out there and plant your seeds and help people in every aspect of their life, in health, in emotions, mental, the physical side, health side, financial side, every side. LifeWave gives us this opportunity, and it really is worth it. So thank you, everyone. And yep, go out there, make it happen. Good night, and that was super, super
very, very
week.
good. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks, everyone.